Hey everybody, Dustin Schmidt back here again today. And today we're going to talk about lenses. And specifically, I want to talk a little bit about Canon's new lenses that just came out. And then we'll talk about kind of lenses in general and maybe some reasons why you would choose some lenses over other lenses. But kind of the big announcement first. So Canon came out and announced a few new lenses, the long-awaited primes that we'd kind of been waiting on. So they announced like their new L series lenses for RF. They announced a 24 and a 50 to go along with the 35 they announced a couple months here back. So now we've got a 24, a 35, and a 50 that are kind of their prime L series for RF. We've been waiting a long time on those. They've had a 50, but it was a 1.2, and it was very expensive. It was big and heavy. It kind of, was the epitome of like the best they could do engineering-wise. This is a new type of lens. It's a hybrid photo and video lens, as are all of these that they just released. That's an interesting strategy, and I want to talk a little bit about that. And then they released a 70 to 200. That's an internal zoom. They've had a 70 to 200. In fact, they've had two other 70 to 200s. They've had their 2.8, and then they had an f4. But those were both lenses that zoomed. And so this new one, again, is a video photo hybrid. And so it doesn't zoom, it zooms internally. Has a couple other features that make it nice for video. And so that's kind of their new range that just got released. So let's talk about the new lenses first, and then we'll get into some other topics here. So why would you want to buy these new lenses that they just came out with? Primarily, I think you want to buy these if you're a hybrid video and photo shooter. That's what they're geared towards, right? They have some features on there like aperture rings that are manual, so you can get in there and you can manually adjust your aperture. They're declicked, so you get a smooth pull when you're going from the fastest, most wide open aperture to closing things down, or vice versa. You get a smooth pull on the iris. That's a big feature of cinema lenses. So they've got that built into it. You've also got AF and electronic focus. In fact, you've got a new motor for that. That's a voice coil motor that they call it, which is very silent. Again, good for video. One of the other biggest things that I think is key with these new releases, especially the primes, is that they're geared for being consistent in terms of the look. So as you go from one lens to the next, if you're switching between primes, you're going to get a similar look from the lenses in terms of the bokeh, in terms of the color rendition. The f-stops are very similar. In fact, they're all similar. They're all f1.4. So the weights are very similar. They're not all exactly the same, but they're close enough that you're not going to be doing any really dramatic changes on your gimbal, just slight changes if you want to fly these on a gimbal. They're the same length, same filter thread, so they become a more uniform set in that way, which is super handy, again, if you're doing video and you need to use stabilizers or things like that. For photo, not so much, but they're also more lightweight for photo. So if you've got limited space in your bag or you just don't want to haul around a bunch of weight, they're great for that. So here's some areas where I think these lenses kind of miss. One of them is that they utilize quite a few software corrections. Most lens manufacturers nowadays that are doing autofocus lenses, proprietary lenses, Canon developing their RF, Nikon developing stuff for their mount, or Sony, etc., utilize some sort of software correction. And you can see that if you ever go into your post-production software, whether you use Lightroom, Capture One, whatever that is. Usually they have lens corrections applied. You can go to a lens correction tab within that software and click things on and off, and you can see what's happening, what's being compensated for with the design of the lens. Cameras also do that. They'll do that internally. There's different settings in your camera menus that allow you to turn certain things on or off. Now, this is kind of a plus. You look at it in the way that technology is getting better. They can design lenses that are smaller and lighter and essentially give you the same picture because they take care of some of that stuff in post-processing. So you could look at that as a really good thing. Now, where that's probably not as good of a thing is if you ever want to use those types of lenses on, for example, a camera that shoots a RAW camera file. In that case, you're not going to be getting the benefit of those corrections. You're going to have to apply that yourself in the software in post. Also something to be said for that because you have more control. You can apply it to your taste and ultimately get a little bit better of a result if you're willing to put in the work because typically your computer and the software and all that has more processing power than what's going to be internal on your camera. So there's that. Now, if you use lenses across systems the way I do, I've got a Red Komodo, which again is a camera that shoots RAW, also shoots ProRes. I've got an R5C, also shoots RAW, or will shoot the XAVC internally. And then I've got a C500 Mark II, which is filming me now, that will not take RF lenses. So it's kind of a moot point, at least in terms of talking about Canon's new lenses. Now, as somebody who owns a lot of lenses currently, and this is just a few that I'm going to use to talk about some stuff, I like these lenses a lot, Canon's new lenses. If money was no object, I would probably go out and buy a set, but it would be for a different purpose. They don't necessarily replace some of what some of these other lenses do. So let's take, for example, Canon's old EF50 1.2. This lens right here. This is an EF mount lens. I've had this lens for a while. It can be easily adapted to RF just by using a simple adapter. Canon makes a bunch of these, other manufacturers make them. This happens to be an adapter from Mikey or Mike, I'm not 100% sure how you say that. I like this one because it has a drop-in filter. So you can put ND, a variable ND, behind the lens when you're using it on something like an R5C. Now, I think that's actually a huge advantage when it comes to using EF lenses or PL lenses on an RF mount. The fact that you can do behind the lens filtration. Now, what's interesting about these new Canon hybrid lenses is they actually do offer you the ability to do some behind the lens filtration. They have some little filter kind of slots back there. But you still have to get into kind of behind the lens and change those out manually. Again, it's still a plus, but it's not quite as convenient as leaving the adapter on the camera and just being able to swap out the EF lens and have all that stuff stay put. Now, if you're already deep into owning a bunch of EF lenses, that's where I think this decision gets hard. As a business owner and somebody that works with my lenses and uses them to make money, the lenses are paid for. These have been around for a while. If I turn around and go buy brand new lenses, like these new RF lenses, I can sell these to get some money back to help offset some of that cost. But my clients aren't necessarily going to know that I'm shooting with an EF lens or an RF lens or one that was made, however many years ago, 10, 15 years ago, to one that just came out, today or in the last week or month or whatever that is. So the benefit has to be a little different. It has to be either in, image quality. Probably these are going to have very excellent image quality, the brand new ones, but are you really going to be able to tell as a layman the difference between that one and say this Canon, old Canon EF50? Or for workflow purposes would be another reason to purchase these new lenses if you're a professional. Are they going to speed up your workflow? Are they going to make a production day go faster? Whether you're switching between photos and videos, whether it's quicker setups between a gimbal, like I said, or any other number of reasons, that may be another option to pick some up. So remains to be seen yet if I'll do that. But so this is the Canon EF50 1.2. Here is another interesting little lens from Canon. This is for the RF mount, and it's their RF mounted Nifty 50. So this is a 50 millimeter f1.8 for the RF mount. This is a very inexpensive lens. It's also a very small lens, and that's the benefit of something like this, is that if I take this tiny little 50 and I put it on my camera here, and this is a native RF lens, and now you can see how small that is, how small that package is, right? So it's a little bit slower. It's a 1.8 as opposed to a 1.4 of these new ones. But what you give up in terms of some of the functionality of that, you get back in terms of like size and weight, right? So I've always thought that the the initial small, cheap kind of RF lenses that they came out for the RF system. The 50, there's a 24, there's an 85, there's a 35, there's a 16. You know, they cover the range 16, 24, 35, 50, 85. There's some longer ones too. But they're slightly slower but cheaper lenses. But they're still fast enough. And the thing that I think is cool about those is that you can get kind of f2 and on down kind of across that range. I think the 16 is probably a little slower. It might be a 2.8. And they're all about this big. They're all kind of this, you know, this tiny. And so if you're really trying to travel small, I think there's something to be said for those lenses and that type of kit versus even these new ones that have come out. But again, those are not the L glass. They're not the fancy ones. Now, the third lens I have here on the table is this one. And this is the Sigma T1.5 50 millimeter PL mount lens. And this thing is a beast. Now, it's on an adapter right now. It's on a PL to RF adapter. This is Metabone's version. But you can see once you put everything on there that you would need to put these on an RF mount camera. And let me take this one back off. You know, again, this is the RF Nifty 50. You know, look at the size difference between these three. Now, the optical performance is going to be very different. I would say that this Sigma 50 T1.5 optically is going to perform the best out of all of these when you put it on something like a RAW camera, because it's designed for cinema. It's designed to operate and look good without a bunch of extra software corrections thrown in. It's designed to have all of the manual controls, the manual iris, the manual focus with 180-degree focus rotation to allow you to do, you know, really precise focusing. It's got an 82 millimeter filter thread. These lenses are also matched across a set for cinema. So you've got similar size clamp on for matte boxes. You've got all the same size filter threads, same gearing and iris locations. So those are also things that are going to speed you up when it comes to working on set and with cinema, but for a different use case, right? So I haven't shot with the new primes. Very few people that have. I would love to get my hands on some and see how they perform. But I'm not going to be rushing out to buy any just yet for a lot of the same reasons why I don't rush out to buy a lot of equipment, which is it's got to make money and it's got to either speed up production or pre or post production or the day or whatever it is to make it worthwhile as a business owner. If you're a hobbyist and you can afford it, I say go out and get all the brand new stuff. I need to think long and hard about whether something like this is really going to kind of do it for me and the way my current cameras and stuff are set up. And so I'd encourage you to think about that in your own setups. But yeah, I'm excited about these new lenses. Okay. Since I own the EF versions of the focal lengths that are currently out, I'd like to put these on here for you to compare. And I do have a couple extra things on here that make these differ a little bit in size. For example, I have put on these caps to standardize the front caps for all these. So I'm not constantly looking for different caps. So these are custom caps that I actually have made the graphics for these and then put these on some press-on fronts from simodlens.com just to standardize some of this. And they also have front rings on here to standardize this so that they'll all take the exact same filter size. So these are step-up rings to go to 82 millimeter, which is what I keep all my filters at 82 millimeter. But we are consistent in those. So I want you to pay attention to something here in terms of the size. So this is the 24, this is the 35, and this is the 50. So now these are very different sized lenses. They're all different height. They're all a different weight. And if you were to put these on a gimbal and try to balance it, you would be looking at dramatically different balancing to get these to work. So again, that's where these new ones and the way they've standardized them as a hybrid video and photo lens, standardized the dimensions, standardized the weight, is really, really cool. And I do like that about them. Now, you can do some stuff with these lenses to make them better suited for cinema. You can get matching step-up rings that match across all of them so that you can use the same filter. You know, for example, the 24 is a 77 millimeter filter. The 35 is a 72. And then the 50 is also 72. So rather than having 77 filter sizes and 72s, I can use a step-up ring to standardize these and then only use an 82 across all of these. These EF lenses do not have any kind of manual aperture on them. It's electronic aperture only. And these were all made at, very different times, the years that they came out, the construction of the lens, all that kind of stuff. They're different f-stops. This 24 is a f1.4, 35 is an f1.4, and this 50 is an f1.2. So all reasonably fast, good lenses. But again, the new ones being standardized kind of makes those easier to work with in terms of swapping between them. So in conclusion, these new lenses, is this something that I'm going to go out and buy? No, not immediately. I'm not going to go buy. Again, because I already own a lot of what I need to go out and do my daily work, these lenses are not for me right now. They may be in the future. I may decide that it makes more sense to sell something like these and get something like that. But again, if you don't see yourself in an RF mount system forever, and things change all the time, competitors come out with new cameras, better cameras, cameras that might suit your workflow better. 5 years from now, Sony might come out with a camera that makes more sense for me and the kind of work I'm doing. Red might change their mount from RF to Nikon. Panasonic and L mount or Leica or whatever that is might have a tool that does the job better than what I currently own. And I want to try to avoid as much as possible buying stuff over and over again, trying to switch lenses between systems. I like a PL mount lens for its versatility across systems. Actually, right now, I really like an EF lens for its versatility across systems. You can put these on Sony E mount with an adapter. You can put them on RF mount. You can put them, on EF mount, obviously. So there's benefits to some of that stuff. I always like to use the phrase, buy once, cry once. Buy something that's going to work for you, that's good, that may be expensive, it's quality, but will get you through a lot of different use cases or across different things. And right now, that's where I'm trying to go with my lenses. I do have the exceptions to the rule, like this Canon 24 to 240 RF mount. Just picked this up. I'll have to do a video on this because I think this is a really cool little lens. Talk about that. And then something like the little Canon Nifty 50, which is cheap enough. I think that's a lens you can go out and buy for $150 or whatever it is at the moment to have something small for a package like that. But again, for professional work, I'm sticking to professional tools right now. I do think these new lenses Canon has are professional tools, but if you already own a bunch of stuff that's working for you, you may hesitate before you jump in to spend a bunch of additional money on something like this. So, just my 2 cents. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.